Si sos de los que aman a Glee y extrañan mucho esta serie, no te pierdas esta entrevista, que es un poco larga, pero porque vale la pena. Tiene cubierto casi todos los aspectos vinculados al origen de la serie, a cómo fue que pensaron su estilo, a cómo fue que influyeron algunas películas y series en esta producción, y obviamente al legado que nos deja, por supuesto, recordando a figuras como Naya Rivera y Cory Monteith. Hablamos de un montón de cuestiones, incluso del documental que salió, El precio de Glee, The Price of Glee, que salió en estos días en HBO Max, vinculado a un corte que a él no le gusta tanto que hicieron porque le parece algo sensacionalista. Hablamos de eso y por supuesto de los rumores vinculados a qué pasaba detrás de cámara en esta gran pero gran serie llamada Glee. Mira.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contre with our latest interview.
I thought it would be successful. I didn't think it would be, the crazy juggernaut it turned out to be.
High school is a caste system. Kids fall into certain slots. Your jocks, your popular kids, up in the penthouse.
Where do the Glee kids lie?
Sub-basement.
Every now and then you do something, and Glee's one of these exceptions, where there are moments when you can very genuinely say, I think we're doing something here. I think this has got an ability to do more than just entertain. I think it has an ability to transcend and maybe, dare I say, educate, or at least bring to light topics to be discussed or promote, ideologies. It had an ability to do more than just be, I think, what Glee could be easily conceived as on the surface, as a lighthearted comedy musical, and that's it.
Glee Club needs guys.
The only life worth living is one that you're really passionate about.
I can't believe you're helping out this loser.
Don't you get it, man? You can't win without me, and neither can they.
Brian and I talked a lot about it, embracing the warm and fuzzy of it, that it could be a little bit brighter than a lot of the work we had done, and certainly that I had done as a cinematographer. And, I like naturalistic, and I knew we were going to do some pretty crazy, outlandish things. And so I felt that a natural, soft light approach allowed it to venture into those crazier arenas without becoming camp, if that makes sense. And then the musical numbers were really inspired by, we went back to musicals. We went back to things, classics like Singing in the Rain, and more modern, aspects of musical movie making, like Dreamgirls was done just a couple years before we did Glee. And I felt like that was a really great example of a modern, musical. We even looked at Busby Berkeley things for, ideas of how things were shot. And, the early musicals of the 50s, the 40s and 50s, where things were just very big, these big crane shots of, a bunch of dancers in sync on a stage. And, we took from that what we thought worked in terms of presenting dance and musical numbers, but we always tried to modernize it and make it, acceptable and intriguing and interesting for a modern audience.
Let your little Glee kids have their club, but don't pretend any of them are something they're not.
We learned a lot in the pilot about the musicals numbers, and we discovered something very early on, that when we photographed our kids, our Glee Club, it was really all about being in there with them and being closer to them and camera up there with them. And then I remember the first time we shot Vocal Adrenaline, the main bad guys, the school where everybody's just so incredibly talented, and Ryan and I had a discussion, or I'd like to say they were discussions. Ryan was being brilliant, and I had the honor of being able to sit there and listen, where he said, I almost feel like they're one giant monster. And then we started to photograph them, and we started with the wide shots, and he came, and I started to formulate that, well, maybe that's it. And then Ryan came over and said, should we even go tighter, or does this work more when they're one giant thing? And I said, well, and at this point, Zach Woodley, the brilliant choreographer that we were blessed to have, came up, and I said, as a testament to Zach, the choreography is so great, because Vocal Adrenaline had a couple of cast, but usually they were professional dancers that Zach would hire. They'd get to train for weeks, and they would come in, and because they were pros, they were perfectly in sync, and they looked amazing. And we all had, the three of us had this conversation about how the wide shots showed you their precision and their talent, and their everything was done symmetrically and perfect sync. And so we developed this sort of approach that, well, maybe when we're doing other schools, certainly ones that are a threat, we do I think we would shoot tighter coverage, but a lot of times I don't think the editors used it because it was fun to, and in the pilot, we ended up doing exactly this. It was fun to cut from wide shots of vocal adrenaline being so impressive as a big unit to our kids watching. And we did this dolly shot going down the line of them in the audience with sort of this, oh shit, pardon my French, but oh no kind of look, like that's what we're up against. And so that dictated a lot in how we approach things.
Where did you do?
What happened to the movies of Glee? Do you know that?
I never heard that, and I don't know if that was a product of later seasons, or I think right around the time that I was still involved, my guess is that maybe the movies became the live tours. I remember hearing some talk about that I think heads got together and said, instead of doing movies, maybe we send them out and all over America and ostensibly the world. So that might be the answer, but in truth, I don't honestly know. It was pretty darn exciting. I mean, there's I've been doing this a while, and I don't get too starstruck anymore, but there's a few, and I'm a little older than you. But I kind of had the same experience. I really was a genuine fan of her music, and she's a big deal. I think to this day she remains a big deal. And so anybody that's reached that level of success and fame, is fun to be around. And she was lovely, and she was really only with us for a brief time. She had very specific things that we shot with her, mainly using her as her, and only a couple of scenes. So I think it was only a day, if I remember, maybe two. But she was lovely, and it was really fun. And I think the cast was, as you astutely said, was very nervous. I think Heather Morris was very nervous because she's the one who interacted with her the most, and but I think it was a very exciting experience, and I recall a very pleasant one. I thought she was lovely.
You're really hot.
You're sweet.
And your breath smells really good.
So does yours.
There was a nice vibe, and I think Brittany, if I remember, acknowledged Heather's an amazing dancer, and I think that was acknowledged, and what she saw that day was very clear evidence of that, and so yeah, I think there was a nice vibe, and she, I think, was very honored that there was an episode devoted to her, and that was certainly a testament of everybody's admiration, and I think especially Ryan's, that he chose to do that and tell that story and honor Britney Spears in that way. I'm a slave for you. I cannot hold it. I looked at some. I didn't want to. Some of them, there's the one with her in the classroom with the young kids, and she's in the red suit, and that was somewhat. We did some attempts at trying to match certain vibes or maybe even certain shots here and there, but we didn't want to go too much in that direction because we wanted to keep it the Glee version, our version of Britney Spears. The only thing we really pursued in terms of a matching thing was when we did the Madonna episode and we did Vogue. It was a lot of fun because that's beautifully photographed, and we had a lot of fun trying to match down to the props, the lighting, the camera moves, that Vogue video. But with Britney, we kept it, a little bit of our own thing, and we really wanted to showcase our Britney, even though it was a tribute to Miss Spears. We wanted it to be about Heather's ability, and you know, the great thing about Heather is she was out there doing her own dancing. There was no dance double or, you know, you could cut to a close up and she could spin into the shot and it's really her because she's that talented. And I think we wanted it to be as much that as we did, you know, a tribute to Britney Spears.
You can call me David.
One of the things that we all dread is meeting somebody that we've loved, their work or even their persona or their personality or, you know, and their talent and meeting them and having it not be a pleasant experience. With Mr. Martin, it was quite the opposite. It was such a joy. He was such a genuine treat to have on set. He was very excited. You know, a lovely, lovely man. I can't say enough. It was such a wonderful experience. He came to set with that incredible smile every day, and just had such a great energy and wanted to do really well. And, you know, I don't know how much acting he has done, but I don't think it was something that I think felt that he really wanted to do well, which I really admired, and that made me feel as though maybe it was something that he hadn't done much of. I honestly don't know if he had or not, because I felt like he was a very good actor, but there was certainly, I could tell there were times when he was nervous, which I think just made him more of a humble, genuine human being. And I got to watch Mr. Martin around the crew, and he treated everybody at the very same level. You know, it's not like he spoke nicely to me or Ryan and then, you know, told makeup, get over here. You know, he was genuinely kind and wonderful to everyone.
I'm gay.
I know.
Really?
I think GLEE became a lot of things, and there's a lot of talk about GLEE in other ways. I choose to focus on what I think GLEE did really right, and those are those moments. I think we put a spotlight on a number of topics, and we did so responsibly and got people to think Naya and Heather, for example, their relationship. And I think it provided a platform for Ryan to allow some of these things that people were not necessarily comfortable talking about to talk about.
I guess I'm not totally in love with the idea, but if that's who you are, there's nothing I can do about it.
The writing of it, the execution by Chris Colfer and Michael O'Malley, who played his father. I think it was Mike who even at one point said, I don't want to be really comfortable with this. And I think Ryan took that and ran with it, as did the other writers. And they sort of allowed him to occupy the space of, I love you. And if this is you, be you. And I support you. I don't get it. I don't even have to like it, but that's not the important thing here. And I think that's the most honest response. I think if they had tried to play it where he was completely fine with it, I don't think it would have been as powerful. And I think it showed fathers out there, and I guess mothers as well, parents that might have children coming out, that it may not be what you had hoped for. It may not be what you want. I know he says in one great scene, he says, I know this is you and I respect that and I love you for it. I'm just so worried about what you'll have to conquer because of it. And Kurt says something like, well, but as long as I have you, I can do that. You know, and I think that's the meaning right there. Was, I think, one of the most powerful numbers we had. Darren Criss, the great Darren Criss, what a talent, my God. It was right around the time when the Max Karofsky character had been terrorizing Kurt. Karofsky turned out to be gay. He didn't want to face that. And so he was bullying Kurt. It's one of our most powerful storylines. But Cough Syrup is intercut with Darren on stage by himself. There's musicians behind him, but he's basically at the microphone doing this incredible version of that song, intercut with Karofsky's decision and then getting ready for his own suicide. And that number was difficult because I think it was relevant, and we all knew that it was to have the courage on several levels. The writing phase, to come up with that. Bradley Beaker, who was one of our best editors and directors, was directing that and did a beautiful job. All of the actors involved were incredible, but to try and execute something that was so powerful, but do it in a way that was tasteful and was not overpowering, was a very delicate sort of balance. And I think everybody achieved on that level.
I don't want to be the guy that just drives around throwing eggs at people.
That was you.
When it comes to Corey and Naya and Mark, it's all just so devastating. You know, Corey and I were close. Corey, I think, was headed towards a directing career because he would ask a lot of questions, and he would come up and say, okay, you know, the camera's way back there, but how come the shot's so tight? And I'd go, well, we're on a very long lens. What is that? And I'd go, okay, a longer lens is when you're on a focal length, you know, and I would explain to him, and he really liked that. And he liked understanding what was happening, and lovely man.
What did you just say to her?
I said I thought you were great.
And then Naya was this quadruple threat. I mean, nobody knew. You know, she was originally brought in, as was Heather, to sort of be behind Quinn, you know, as her backup Cheerios, you know, and they oftentimes were shot in a little triumvirate. And then Ryan and the writers started to give each of them dialogue and acting opportunities. We knew Heather was an amazing dancer. We learned Naya was a very amazing dancer. But as they were given more, they both rose to the occasion. And Naya, you know, was stunningly beautiful. She was an amazing dancer. Then we heard her sing, and it was off the page. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then Ryan started to give her more and more dramatic elements to her character, and she rose to the occasion every time. So she was the real deal.
You mean something to me. If something ever would have happened to you and I didn't do everything that I could to try and stop it, I'd never be able to live with myself.
Yes, it's intriguing as to why all that occurred on one show. I don't know of a show that had a cast that large where 3 of them are no longer with us. And that's only the cast. There were a lot of behind the scenes people. One of my stand-ins that had been with me for years passed away in an automobile accident, Mark Watson. A lovely, lovely man. And so there's a lot of mystery to that. And it's easy to get caught up in that. I think for me, I'd like the legacy, in answer to your question, of both the show and Corey, Naya, and Mark, and everyone, would be that the show achieved things when it was allowed to. And even if it lost itself here or there, or, you know, I think as any show goes 5 or 6 seasons, you know, it's hard to keep it as fresh. You know, obviously, to me, the first couple of seasons of any show are really where it shines, you know, because everything is new and fresh. And but I would think that the legacy could be what was attempted, and then also going back to what I was saying a minute ago, what was achieved with respect to, you know, providing a platform to entertain, certainly, illuminate, I believe so, you know, and if not illuminate, then at least be a catalyst for discussion.
3 major cast members dead.
I don't want to say the C word, the curse word, but that's where your mind goes. All I really want to say, in truth, because my gut answer is no, not really, but I will say this: you've been so kind and gracious that I want to give you something, and in that I was a little disappointed that it focused more on the mysterious, you know, than some of the achievements made. And I think anyone is totally in their rights to question what we achieved or might differ with their version of what we achieved. I might say, I thought we achieved this, this, and this. You might say, well, I think you achieved this and this. Some people might say, I don't think you guys achieved anything. Everybody has their right to an opinion, but I think that there was enough achieved that could have been, I think, focused on a little bit more or a little better balance. It really felt to me like it was more interested in the, you know, the negative sides. And, you know, yes, did they work incredibly hard? Absolutely. Was it a difficult show? No doubt. You know, was it a challenging show? Yes. But I also think, and we've said it, you know, I think that good things were achieved. Maybe that I don't want to say necessarily made it okay that they worked that hard, but I think that we all knew, to what your very first question, I think we all knew that there was merit in it, and so that maybe made it worthwhile.
Everyone's gonna know now because of you.
The whole school already knows. And you know what? They don't
Not just the school, you idiot. Everyone.
What are you talking about?
It's very difficult because I know that that's the juicy stuff that everybody wants to hear, but I don't feel it's my place. And as a director of photography, I'm somebody that, you know, if I'm doing my job right, I have the confidence of the cast, and sometimes actors will come up to me or the camera operator before they'll go to a director even and say, hey, how was that? You know, because there's a relationship and an intimacy that's formed. You know, maybe it's because we don't carry the title of the director, or we're not as intimidating as Ryan, maybe, you know, and with his brilliance. And so I wouldn't want to damage that by saying the wrong things or too much. There were, you know, fireworks here and there, but as I was just saying, there was nobody on that show that was not working their butt off. So to be working that hard, you know, these actors weren't like actors on a regular show where once your scenes are done, hey, you're going home. And if it's 2:00 in the afternoon, so be it. You're done with your shots. If they finished shooting with us, they went to go practice a dance number. And if they weren't at dance rehearsal, they were recording a song, and then they got to go home.
Yeah.
So if they had little flare-ups, I write that off as, you know, the pressure cooker that can be what we do. And especially on a show like that is so demanding. But I think that's as far as I'll comment, if that's all right.
Oh, so, but would you say this was like blown out of proportion? Like, because it's insane. I don't do this. Like, I don't look interviews to talk about the dark sides of the show.
Yeah.
I do interviews to talk about fun facts. So sometimes I ask for help, and everyone asks this. So, like, would you say this is like something that someone started and it was blown out of proportion?
No, there were issues. There were certain people that didn't get along, and you know, most of this occurred after my time. To be completely honest, I think in my 3 seasons, maybe I saw the beginning of it, but
okay,
everybody was on their best behavior, you know, in the first season because we didn't know what it was yet. Second season, everybody was basking in the glow of the, you know, Emmy nods and Golden Globe awards, and I think by third season, you know, is right around the time when some of these things start to hatch. So no, I can tell you that you know, there were things that were occurring. I think my difference in my perspective is that I don't look at them as the harsh personality attacks that I've read. I look at it as a product of the fatigue and the hours, and you know, some of that is just television. Television can be very difficult.